Okay, well, we'll get started then. Thank you very much for coming along to this meeting today on the topic of infrastructure and water strategies for climate-compatible development. I want to welcome both those of you who are here in person, but also those of you who are watching online, because this is being streamed live on the web. So there are lots of people out there watching online as well. People who are online, please do feel free to participate through the online chat room, and feel free to pose questions as well during the Q&A later on. My name is Karen Ellis. I lead the Private Sector and Markets programme here at ODI. I also lead the Cross-Institute Low Carbon Growth work stream here. A few housekeeping points before we begin. If the fire alarm sounds, which is a continuous ringing bell, please make your way out through the doors and down the stairs, not using the lift, and out of the double doors onto the street outside. Please turn off all mobile phones or put them on silent, and please feel free to avail yourself of all the publications which are out in the corridor on sort of various aspects of infrastructure and climate change related work that we are doing. Also, please note that this event is on the record, and that a summary of the event will be made and put on the web within 48 hours, along with audio and possibly also video recordings, I think. So this will all be up and available for public viewing and downloading within 48 hours after this meeting. Right, so let's move on to the substance. Climate change is clearly a really important issue that's going to affect policy making across all dimensions of government, and infrastructure is particularly true for, because infrastructure is one of the key components of a climate compatible growth strategy. We've done some work at ODI looking at low carbon growth strategies and the role that infrastructure plays in that for developing countries of different types, and it's clearly a really important part of that. The decisions that are taken now about investment in infrastructure will have really long run implications for the ability of those countries to adapt to climate change, and also to position themselves to move on to a low carbon growth pathway for the future. So it's a really fundamental and important plank of a sort of climate compatible low carbon growth strategy for developing countries. This event launches two reports that have been recently published that discuss the role of the infrastructure sector in meeting the climate change challenge in the developing world. The first one is called Climate Compatible Development in the Infrastructure Sector, and this was led by Engineers Against Poverty with inputs from the Private Sector and Markets programme here at ODI. For those of you who may not know, Engineers Against Poverty, it's a London-based NGO working with partners in industry, government and civil society on engineering and international development issues, and Lily may want to correct me or add to that description later. So this will be presented by Lily Ryan Collins, who is the lead author for this report, sitting on my left here. After she's presented on that, we will have Dr. Zahab Wanimana, I hope I said that correctly, who is joining us from Rwanda. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
That's great. It's great to have you join us.
Well.
That's good. So Dr. Zahab Wanimana is Minister of State in charge of transport in the government of Rwanda, Ministry of Infrastructure. And he will act as a discussant and provide some comments on the report and how that tallies with the infrastructure plans that are being developed in Rwanda. We'll then have some QA on that first report straight away, so that the Minister can participate in that discussion. And then we'll move on to the second report, which is about climate change and water sanitation and hygiene, which we conveniently shorten to WASH. And this will be presented by the lead author, Roger Callow, who is from ODI. And then we'll have, as a discussant, Peter Newborn, who is an independent consultant and research associate to ODI. So we should have around 15 to 20 minutes for each presentation, followed by about 10 minutes from each discussant, which should allow plenty of time for Q&A and discussion afterwards. Right, so Lily will make the first presentation on climate compatible development in the infrastructure sector. Lily has recently become an infrastructure advisor at DFID and was previously working at Engineers Against Poverty when this report was written. She's a chartered civil engineer and has worked as a structural engineer in the UK, and she also has several years field experience working on post-disaster housing reconstruction projects in Sri Lanka and El Salvador. So without further ado, I will hand over to Lily.